So hi everyone. First of all, thank you so much for your overwhelming response in my last video. I have gone through all of your suggestions and comments. Thank you so much for that. Based on your suggestions only, I have decided to start with the very basic of additive manufacturing before going into the deep. So in this video, we'll be talking about very basic some process and working of additive manufacturing or 3D printing. If you are one who is beginner in this area or you don't have any idea about this, or even if you are an expert, let us learn together. Let's start today's video. 3D printing. There is two words, right? 3D and printing. So before knowing about 3D printing, let's start with the 2D printing. Many of us are already having 2D printers, mean instant printers in our house, right? So we know we put a paper in the printer and we send the document in PDF or Word document to the computer which is connected to the printer, and the printer prints the PDF document, means the words or the PDF sentences, over the A4 sheet paper. Here we are providing a paper on which the alphabets will be printed. So the paper, we can consider it as a base over which the words are being printed. If we see the printer, that nozzle part from where the ink comes, that nozzle moves in a X direction or Y direction, and the paper will be stationary over which the words will be printed. The material is ink. But in 3D printing, as with the name we can see, it's 3D. So over a base, similarly, we will be printing a 3D object. As a base, we choose some harder material, right? Stainless steel base or something, a thick base over which the thing will be printed. So this is the process of 3D printing. Here also, similarly, as in 2D printer, the material is ink. In 3D printer, depending upon your application, depending upon which object you are printing, you can choose any sort of material. Like for example, metals, non-metals, polymer, plastic, anything. So yeah, in this case also, we'll be having a nozzle. This nozzle can move in X or Y direction, and the base plate will be fixed. Now in this case, as by the name suggested, 3D printing, if you see by definition, 3D printing is a layer by layer material deposition process. Because in 2D printing, we are layering or we are printing one layer. But in 3D printing, we will be printing more number of layers. So obviously, along with X and Y direction, the nozzle has to be moved over the Z direction, or the base plate has to be moved in the Z direction. So we are saying layers. We'll be printing layers. So by this term layer, we can think another term is coming into our mind. Like what will be the properties of the layer? Means there should have some amount of material that will be deposited by per layer, right? So the layer height or the amount of material that needs to be delivered with each layer needs to be defined by us only. So this is the thing. Another thing, if I talk, for 2D printer or inkjet printer, we connect the computer with the printer, right? We connect our laptop, phone or computer with the printer. We make some Word or PDF document in our laptop, which we send to the printer. The printer reads it and prints it. That's all. So for 3D printer also, we need to supply something to the printer which needs to be made using this 3D printer. So in this case, we can't make a Word document or PDF to build, right? So we need to have a 3D object which we will supply to the printer and the printer will print. So in this case, for 3D modeling, this is one term called CAD. This is computer aided design. There are a number of commercially available softwares which basically are used to make this CAD model of an object. So CAD model is nothing but a 3D model of an object. Now, suppose I want to print this pen. I want to build or make this pen using 3D printer. So I need to supply some information to the 3D printer about this pen, that I want to make this pen using that 3D printer. So I'll make a 3D model of this pen. How? using the CAD software. I can measure this pain, or just normally if I'm having some innovative idea in my mind about this pain, I want to add some more features, so I can do that in CAD modeling. I'll just simply make something in the CAD model, some designs in the CAD model of this pain. That CAD model I'll supply to the printer. According to that, the printer will print the part. Okay? So now we can have an idea that what is additive manufacturing, right? It's a layer by layer deposition process. We'll supply some 3D object. So the machine basically reads the file and the machine prints the file. For that also, we need to define certain process parameters. Now, what is process parameters? For inkjet printing, you can think like, before press the print button, we set some process parameters or some components in the computer or the machine. You need to print these things in a A4 sheet, right? In a landscape mode or in a portrait mode, or the ink should be supplied in this manner, or it will be black and white, or it will be colorful. These things. So these things are basically the process parameters that needs to be set by the user only. Similarly, for 3D printing also, we'll be setting some kind of parameters in the computer, and based on those parameters only, the 3D printer will print the part. So this is the whole idea of 3D printing. Now, if you can't understand anything about 3D printing, then I'll take another example. There is a small bird called babui in India and Bangladesh. In English, it's called bayaweaver. So these birds make or build their own house by their own, right? So how they make? This type of birds bring some kind of ripping out tree parts, branches, leaves, grasses from environment. They put those things all together. They deposit the things using their mouth. They put the material over the tree branches where they want to build their house, and by putting the things in a layer by layer manner, they build their house. By layering those ripping out grasses, leaves, they make their house, right? So if you see very carefully, what the bird first does, they first choose the tree where they want to build their house, right? After that, they search for a branch of a tree which will be very stable, which will have the strength for bearing their house for longer time period. So which will be flat, or those type of things they want. So they first choose that tree branch. So this is basically the base for their house. So they first set the base. Just like in 2D printing, we first put the A4 sheet paper. In 3D printing, we first set the base plate. After that, the bird search for the materials that are needed to build their house. So those birds can't bring bricks or cements for the building. So they will search for some ripping out tree parts or grasses, leaves, right? So they will bring those parts to the tree. They will bring it using their mouth. They will put those things over that base where they want to make their house. And by putting the material over time with layer, they will build their house. So we can think the birds are bringing the material using their mouth and depositing the material over the base using their mouth. So in this case, we can correlate this situation with our 3D printing. In 3D printing also, we use a nozzle using which we deposit the material, right? Also, for specific application, for specific component building, we choose specific materials. That is also important. So nature is the topmost teacher we are having. So we can correlate this 3D printing with the nature thus. This was a very basic of additive manufacturing or 3D printing. So if you are a beginner in this field, or if you are an expert in this field, if you are one who doesn't have any idea about 3D printing and for the first time in life you are watching this video and getting introduced to this new topic 3D printing, then I'd love to have all of your feedback, because I'm also a student. So thank you so much. Let's meet in my next video. Till then, happy printing.